Hi everyone, welcome to Tech Tuesday. My name is Tom Levine, Cornerstone's tech guru. We're going to go ahead and start the presentation now. Looks like we've got about 9 people in attendance, so I'm going to go ahead and just prompt everyone once again. The handout under the Handout tab is the PowerPoint notes actually that I have created for Microsoft Word. If you want to go ahead and download that, please do. It's just a brief walkthrough of most of what we're going to go over today. Just a few key things to cover before we get started. First is our Cruise in the Caribbean tour. That's going to be happening from May 3rd to May 10th of 2020, and it's going to be based on your sales. So if you'd like to sign up for that, the qualification period for sales is January 1st to 31st of this year, 2019. If you would like to go ahead and register for that, go to www.crnstone.com/cruise-2020. The page will look a little something like this for you. Just two other things to mention. First off is our individual corner with Jeff Baglin. That's coming up again this next Wednesday, 3/27. And that'll be on Emeritus with Diego Corrig. Also, we have the next Build Your Brand webinar coming up, 3/26. That's actually this coming Tuesday, and that'll be on Website 201. So if you missed the first one, feel free to go ahead and watch that on our YouTube page and go ahead and review. Jess and Marilyn are really wonderful with websites, so they'd be happy to help with anything, any questions you might have on that. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. My plan for today is to cover some of the popular uses of Microsoft Word, what exactly is going on with all these tabs and this ribbon up here, some different things and uses for the header and footer options. Most people don't even have any idea what's going on with those, and also how to add in charts and pictures as well as securing your document. These are really just some of the basic things about Microsoft Word, and it really barely covers what it can do. One of the most popular uses for Word, and from my research, is to actually use mail merge, which is available under this Mailings tab. And the reason I'm mentioning it now is that we're actually not going to cover what's going on with this. Mail merge and this Mailings tab here allows you to use Microsoft Word to print your own custom envelopes, your own labels, to set up multiple address sheets and control exactly who's going to receive a mass mailer. But that was actually already covered by me last year. If you'd like to learn more about how to use that section of Word, which is really very useful, I'd recommend watching the presentation I gave on that last year, which should be available on the Cornerstone YouTube page under the Tech Tuesday playlist. I believe it's the third option down. So I'd highly recommend reviewing that. Some of the most popular uses for Word, though, include making flyers, drafting contracts, like I said, printing labels, and actually creating resumes and professional letters. In order to access some base documents for that, if you go under File and New, you can actually see several different options for this. And you actually get to see here it has some different folders with different types of things. It's got some brochures, diagrams, flyers, draft letters, and lists. And all these options here are available for download actually on the Microsoft Store. And there is a link in the handout that I have presented. I believe it is under the tab for popular designs and formats in the notes section there. So feel free to go ahead and link out to there and download some different options for your Microsoft.com templates. I don't recommend just using the base templates, but they're a good place to start if you're trying to create a professional document. One other thing that I actually didn't mention earlier, if you have any questions on anything regarding my presentation, I will address them at the end. Feel free to type them in the chat box or put it in the question section, and I'll go ahead and address it when I'm done covering the different topics for today. First, I want to go over some of the main things about the different tabs that'll be used in Microsoft Word, as well as some of the different options on the ribbon. When I refer to the ribbon, I refer to this section down here. And when I say tabs, I'm referring to the different options up ahead. That includes the Home tab, Insert tab, Page Layout tab, and things like that. We're going to be covering a little bit in depth of what the Home tab, Insert tab, Page Layout tab, Review tab, and View tabs will do for you here. So first off is this font section underneath the Home tab. I'm going to go ahead and highlight some text to kind of display what exactly happens as you go through these sections. First off is fonts. Fonts are actually the way that the text looks. So as you can see, it defaults to Calibri body text. That's what we have up already. There are different types of formats, and depending on the type of document you're trying to put out, you'll either want to use the base document type, Calibri, or Arial, which is what I use normally on a day-to-day basis in my Excel tables. You also have things like Arial Black, which are really bolded, rounded bold fonts, really anything you could think of there tends to be a font for. And like I mentioned from that link, you can actually download different fonts as well. Braille Hand ITC is what I tend to use in my messengers, which is just, it almost looks like handwritten text, as you can see here, but it's not very professional. Like I said, I'd recommend using either Calibri Body or Arial, or if you're a traditionalist, Times New Roman. You can also change the font size using this drop down over here. And as you can see, if I go up to even just size 26, the text gets really, really large. That different option really changes the overall look of a document and makes things bolded and a little bit bigger. If you don't want to select a specific font size, you can use these quick adjust options here to shrink the font rather quickly down to something a little bit more manageable. Now it's font size 11. Or you can jump up, and that'll jump by single digits as far as font size. The difference is with this drop down here, you might be able to select a very specific size, but you can also enter even up to a 0.5 of a font. So you have a lot more control by manually typing a font size into the box. Another thing that you can do with this upper section here, and I believe on the presentation under the Home tab that's labeled as font formatting, you can actually change things really quickly as far as casing is concerned. As you can see with Calibri Body, I'm in uppercase only right now, but if I click the lowercase option, it'll change the selected text to lowercase. If I choose sentence case, it'll capitalize the first letter of the first word and keep going until it sees a period. And if I were to say capitalize each word, I can also do that rather quickly. The last thing I could do is to do toggle case, which is lowercase for the first letter of each word and then uppercase for the rest. Really, I don't see much of a point to toggle case, but if you want to make things stand out in a format, that might be a way to do it. I'm going to go back to capitalize each word, however, just to give a good example of what this next button does. As you can see, it says clear formatting when I scroll over this option. And what that does is it clears all the formatting from the selection, leaving only the plain text. However, if I do that, it won't actually change my casing options. What it will do is it'll clear any of the formatting from down here in this section. So I'll cover that in a moment after I go back into uppercase. This selection down here is, in my opinion, really useful for changing the look of a font and the look of different words in a document. That would be by bolding, italicizing, or underlining your text. As you can see, underline has several different options. You could double underline, you could bold underline, or you could even go as far as dot and dashes if you really want to make something stand out. Another thing that you can do to text with these options is add a strike through. This is really useful for reviewing document text if you just want to make a physical mark. You could also add subscripts or superscripts, and actually I'm going to show you what that is by highlighting these two words here. A subscript is a set of words below something. So as you can see, example up here is bolded, and then the font size is halved and it's below the text here for the subscript. I can remove that by just clicking the option again, or I could add a superscript up in here. The most common example that I can think of for uses for this is typing out formulas, but that's really only useful for scientific papers. Another option that it's used for is adding notation. So if you're trying to show like notation 1 or notation 2 through your document, if you're writing a contract, that's how you would gain access to that setting. Some other text effects that you can add through here are text glow, which actually changes the overall look of a font. If you've used previous versions of Microsoft Word, we're actually using 2010 right now. This is most similar to adding word art, but it actually changes the overall look and feel of your text. As you can see, my example text field here has now become a very different format. It's very grayed out and brown, and it has a shading applied through. This is what that clear formatting option up here is really useful for if you're trying to remove this section. Another thing you can do is you can add a highlight behind, or you can change the font color specifically. Like I'm going to change the top section now to red. You can also adjust different paragraph settings and add lists using the paragraph tab underneath home. You can add bullets, which will bullet every single point you have highlighted, and it'll actually auto bullet if you add further indentation to your paragraph. As you can see, it's made a list here. To remove that, just click on the section of text you want and click on the bulleted option. That's actually what this section of options does, actually. I'm going to hit backspace on this. And to actually add those tabs in, all I did was hit enter, just so you know how to break apart paragraphs. It's very similar to using Microsoft Outlook to draft a message. But some other options for numbering lists are to do numerals. If you click on these options here, it enumerates it by 1, 2, 3, score marking, lowercase i's to number it out. You can even use capital letters, lowercase letters, whatever type of numbering format you wish. I'm going to go ahead and format it to none. And this last option here is to add multi-level lists. What that does is it separates out your list, not by just bullets, but by different really bolded options for your list format. A good explanation here is this first option, how it has one AI, and that'll be how it tiers lists, just to give a good example of that. I'm going to leave this first option here, hit enter and tab, and what that does is that creates a multi-level list. To undo that, I would hit Control Z, which is my full undo option. And then I'm going to deselect my list option up here. Another thing that you can do is you can add a indent through these indentation options up here for a full paragraph. If I were to say increase the indent, it'll increase the indent of the full paragraph there. If I select it again, it'll increase it again. If I want to undo that, I could decrease the indent twice using this option. Another thing you can do is you can sort alphabetically selected list of text. This is really more useful if you have a set of list data, and it sorts in a similar way to Excel, which we covered in our last session. Another thing you can do is to show and hide the paragraph settings if you are so inclined through this section here. Microsoft Word also defaults to a left text alignment. You can quick access that as it shows with the Control L option, but something else you could do is you could center text, which aligns your text field to the center. You could align things to the right, or you could add a justified, which aligns text to both the left and right margins, adding space if necessary, but giving preference to left section. I prefer to keep things in left justify personally. Another thing, if you want to just format your paragraphs in general with tabs, go ahead and just tab the first sentence of your paragraph, and it'll give you this auto function. You can change back tab here, and it'll change it back to, oh, you just meant one tab. But otherwise, it'll auto indent every paragraph you start after. All I did was click the end of this paragraph and hit enter, and now my next paragraph starts. I'm going to just add a word and hit enter, and as you can see, the text is still indented. If I just add a row of A's here, you can see that that indent is remaining. Now I'm going to undo what I did here just to get back to our base document. Now that we've gone over that, I will also mention the styles section here. This is useful if you just want to stylize your document real quick. These are default options offered by Word, and you can actually download styles in a similar way to the formats that I mentioned previously. You can just select one here and that'll format your entire document for you. I don't really see much use to these styles since you have the option of just fully formatting your document, but it is a good option if you just want to really quickly go through things and change the overall look. Next, we have the Insert tab. From the Insert tab, you have access to inserting page breaks, entire blank pages, or a cover sheet for your document. Cover sheets are really most useful in contract writing, so that's why I mention them. But you can also format cover pages very differently from the drop-down, as you can see with alphabetical, annual, and these are all just base options. You could even just insert a clear cover page or download more from Office if you so choose. You can also insert a table here, and if I click the table, and as you can see, I can draw up a table format from here, or I can insert a table that I already have saved. When I hit Insert Table here, it'll ask to insert a custom number of rows, which is not the saved option. But just to kind of show you what that looks like if I were to insert table, it gives me access to a much higher table count. Let's do 18 columns with 4 rows. It'll insert 18 columns with 4 rows. I'm going to hit Control-Z to undo this in a second, but you can edit this pretty much like you'd edit an Excel table, but it won't give you access to formulas. And if I want to delete it, I'll highlight it all, left-click, and hit Delete Table. That'll remove it. Once again, you can Control-Z to undo these options. Another thing that you can insert from the Insert tab are pictures that you have saved. The way you do that, I'm going to start a new line for where I'm inserting the picture, and it'll actually insert where your cursor is. I'm going to go to Picture, and under my Tech Tuesday section for Word, I actually have a stock image that I've got here to insert. And as you can see, it inserted that picture. Aligning pictures is actually kind of difficult through Microsoft Word. As you can see, my cursor is now at the bottom here, but that actually aligns to where my image starts, which looks a little bit weird. You can also just drag your picture through to show where it's going to be positioned, or you can resize your picture very easily just by clicking and dragging the view options here. I'm going to go ahead and delete this picture though from the document. Another thing you can do with the Insert tab is you can insert shapes. Shapes are really useful for drawing the eye as well as for adding flair to a brochure. You can insert this heart here and that'll be over text. If you right click on it, you actually get the same options that you would from PowerPoint. And that's because all of the Microsoft Suite is connected and kind of phrased the same. I'm going to go ahead and send this to back. And what that should do is if I click send to back right, push it behind my text, but it's not really working for us today. I'll go ahead and review that a little bit later. But additionally, you can insert flowcharts from here using different chart options. You can add clip art and shapes as well as smart art, which is how you would create flowchart graphics. One of the other things that I'm going to mention is you can actually add hyperlinks into your document using this hyperlink thing. And it's not exactly the easiest thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how by inserting the link to what I had earlier, this Cruise into the Caribbean. I'm going to go ahead and copy the link text real quick from here and then close out of the document or the web page. And now I have the hyperlink here. But as you can see, I've only got the text. To go ahead and add in that hyperlink, I'm going to highlight the selection of text I want to create as a hyperlink, hit hyperlink, and now you have these different options. You can actually hyperlink to save files as it shows. This is actually my set of documents for this Word presentation here on the flash drive I've got plugged into the computer. But if you wanted to create a link to an existing page, you would click this existing file or web page section here, add the current folder in here, But under address, you're going to actually put the full web address of what you're trying to link to and hit OK. As you can see now, the text is actually orange because of the format that I've been using. But I can format that text here as well, make it the traditional light blue that you're used to seeing. And then if I wanted to follow that, I would hold down the Control key on my keyboard and click on the link. And as you can see, once it loads, it's going to open up that page for our Caribbean cruise registration on www.crnstone.com. But that's how you'd go ahead and add in a hyperlink into your document through the Insert tab. That's really the last thing I'm going to cover here, other than headers and footers. Headers and footers are really used more in resumes. I used my header in my resume section to add my name, my address, and my email. If I click from this dropdown, as you can see, there are several formats that you can use for your header. I believe I'm using this alphabet format right now. But to add a header, you just click on one of these options or just go into Edit Header, which is what I'm going to do now. One of the things that you can do to a header is use it to add a document title, which is what I typically use it for. You can go ahead and edit the text in this text box, or you can add even a page number. You can format these page numbers any way you wish, say 1, 2, 3 on every page, continue it from the continued sections, or you can even include chapters if you're trying to write up a full book. But we're not going to go ahead and do that today. We're going to go ahead and start at 1 and hit OK. We're going to insert this at the top of the page, like so. And as you can see, it'll actually overwrite your header options. If you want to include a page number with your header, you're going to have to go ahead and hit this document title option, exit out, and then insert your page number from here. And just do a right click, additional actions, options, and it should give you options here under this advanced action. Another thing you could do is to simply go this page number and current position, lane number option as well. And that's how you can go ahead and add that in. Scrolling to page 2, you can see it actually auto numbers that as page 2 now. And if I were to advance it into a page 3, I exited that heading by just double clicking on the page. I'm going to hit enter to page 3. You can see it's auto-numbered all the way through to page 3. This setting is actually one that people normally use in the footer of a document. And you can actually access header footer by quickly double-clicking on the header or footer option as well. I can type out even in my footer here just text and hit enter and exit the option. And as you can see, it's available here at the bottom of the 3rd page as well. Let's say you just wanted to include your header on the first option here under header and footer design. You can actually click this different first page option and it'll undo all your header settings. And then I'm going to just type in example up here and then hit close header footer after I go ahead and delete this option here from this 2nd page. As you can see now, my header is gone from page 3, gone from page 2, but still exists on page 1, and that's actually how I go ahead and add titles. Additionally, we're going to go over some of the page layouts that you have access to. You can edit your margins, orientation of the page, and size, as well as the text columns from here. And just to give a good example, I'm going to go ahead and highlight this text and put 2 sections here. It'll go from left to right, and now I have my sample text over here on the left, as well as my sample text over here on the right, and it's actually formatted it into 2 columns for this area that I have highlighted. Can also go through the full page as well, and that would allow me to just format everything this way. I'm going to go ahead and put it back in the traditional format here, just to show you a little bit more of these options. You can also add in breaks here, breaks for the column text, add a next page break. You can even add a section break based on the page that you're on, even or odd. You can add in line numbers as well if you're trying to count line numbers, or hyphenation. This watermark here, though, is something else that I'm going to cover. You can add different types of watermarks, such as confidential, do not copy, draft, and these options here are how you would go ahead and add little watermarks behind. You can also actually add a custom watermark here. And what this option does is it allows you to insert a picture watermark. If you've got a select watermark, maybe just for your company, you would go to Select Picture. And we're going to go ahead and actually insert that stock image I had earlier as a watermark and hit Apply, Close. You can't actually really see it very well because of all the text. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the text just so you can see it. But if you can't see that just because of the stream, this background image is actually now a watermark on this page. Like I said, I will actually be answering questions here shortly, and we are nearing more of the end. The last few tabs we're going to cover are the Review tab here, which allows you access to spelling and grammar check, some basic research functions, which allow you to kind of sort through reference materials, as well as access to a thesaurus and word count options. And you can actually translate things automatically into different languages here. You can also add comments if you're trying to review from this comment section, and you can accept and reject commented changes using these options. And lastly, we're going to come back to restricting editing here in a second. But under the View section, you gain access to viewing all different types of document views. This entire time, we've actually been in the print layout section. And I've seen a lot of people get frustrated trying to get back to this view of Microsoft Word. Oftentimes, it'll go from print layout to web layout with no warning. What web layout allows you to do is really structure the view of how a web page is going to look if you're trying to draft one of those. And the way you'd change it if you see your Microsoft Word document defaulting to this, because some versions will, is just click on that page layout or print layout, and it'll show you exactly how your document will look when you're printing it. You can also go to full screen reading if you're trying to just review and read how these pages are going to look. And you can hit save here to just quick save. And I'm going to close out of that option just to get back into the default. You can also do outlines. So it'll outline your paragraphs for you here and show you exactly where your page breaks are. Additionally, if we close this view, go back into the View tab, it'll also allow you to draft things. Which is just a different type of drafting view. You can also actually add splits here if you want to review, maybe leave that top page open but scroll down to the very bottom of your document for editing. The way you would do that is add that split option here. It'll actually create two different sections of your Word document that you can scroll through. That's very useful for actual editing. We're going to go ahead and click that again to remove splits. You can also open up different things in different windows of Word for quick editing, but I'd kind of shy away from that. I just don't like using that option. Lastly, we get into securing your document, which is very, very important for Microsoft Word. Most Word documents that people send, even if you're just doing one of like maybe a direct deposit form or something, you want to be able to send that to people, but you don't want them to be able to edit it. The reason being you don't want to maybe send out a contract and not review it, but have someone edit the document text. The way you do that is by clicking this Restrict Editing option over here and selecting this Allow Only This Type of Editing in the document. As you can see down here, it has selected already No Changes under Read Only. And what that does is it locks your document that you send out as read only. People can save the versions of their document as not read-only and then edit it that way, which is why I don't really like using that specific option. You can also change things to fill in forms or track changes. But we're going to ahead and allow people to only add comments. You can also add exceptions here if you're set up on a group network, and you can add in different user exceptions here. When you're done selecting the type of restrictions you want, I'm going to go ahead and click Yes, Start Enforcing Protection, and that'll set you up for entering these passwords. For now, I'm just going to enter the password as password, no capitals or anything, because it's easy to remember. And then you re-enter the password below. And click OK. What that allows you to do is no longer edit it. I'm actually hitting delete on this section of highlighted text, but it's not letting me. I can even hit backspace, and I'm no longer able to edit that. What I can do is I can add a comment, such as delete repeated word. And that was kind of quick. All I did was hit new comments here. Then I can actually save the document by clicking this little save option here. And if I close out of the document and reopen it, it's loading up here now. My comment is still there. And if I go into review, I can actually delete that comment as well. I'm going to go ahead and remove this restriction. And the way I would do that is by going into restrict editing and clicking stop protection. It will prompt for a password, which we've already decided is password, not capitalized. And I'm going to hit OK. Now my protection is no longer enabled. I'm going to hit Control-Z and undo that. Another thing you can do is you can actually fully lock down a document. Let's say you're editing a contract and you want no one to be able to even open it. The way you would do that is by going under File, and under here it automatically kind of pops up into the info and permissions. As you can see, this protect document is the default, but it says anyone can open, copy, and change any part of this document. And the reason for that is actually because there's no password assigned. Some different options from this dropdown are to mark as final, which is letting readers know that the document is final, and it automatically makes it read-only. You can encrypt it with a password, which is what we're actually going to show. You can restrict editing, which if you click that option, pops up to the restricted editing under review, which we already had. And then you can also select add a digital signature, and it ensures the integrity of the document by adding an invisible digital signature. What that does is it not only marks you as the author, but it also adds a signature if you added a signature field into the document. We're going to go ahead and do encryption here because let's say we don't want anyone to view this file. The password is going to be password again. And then we're going to click OK. It will caution you here if you lose or forget the password, it cannot be recovered, and that is true. You can't even recover it from Microsoft support. It's advisable to keep a list of the passwords and their corresponding document names in a safe place. Personally, if you're going to lock down a document with a password, I would make it something easy for you to remember and not very easy for anyone else to guess. Something maybe with a capital letter and a string of numbers at the end. I'm going to click OK. And then it'll prompt you to re-enter the password. This will just ensure that you didn't instantly forget it. If you enter a false password in here and click OK, it'll actually not allow you to lock the document, but I'm going to show you how that locks down now. And hit OK. Now a password is required to open the document, and it is encrypted. I can still edit things as I wish once I'm inside the document, as you can see by deleting that text. But if I close out and hit save and then try to reopen it, I'm going to double click to open the document. It'll open up Microsoft Word, but it'll give me that password lockdown. I'm going to go ahead and type in the password incorrectly just to show you what'll happen. Just pass and hit OK. It'll give me this pop-up over here that says password is incorrect. Word cannot open the document. I'm going to hit OK, and it'll just leave Microsoft Word open, but you don't get access to the document. It doesn't actually delete the document, though, or give you notice that anyone tried to access it. If I type in the proper password and hit OK, my document is now open and able to be edited. If I go into File, Protect Document, and encrypt with password again, and remove the password and hit OK, it unlocks the document. So now anyone could go in, double click on it and edit it. I'm going to go ahead and save this option here because I don't want to get locked out. Other than that, there are a few shortcuts that I'd like to show you guys. Control-C is copying selected text. Control-X will cut selected text. And Control-V will paste. Just to go ahead and show you a little bit of what that looks like, I'm going to highlight this red text here and do Control-C. And that's a copy. And then I'm going to hit Control-V for paste. And as you can see, that moved the selected text over. Control Z is one that I didn't actually include on the useful shortcuts, but it is very useful. That is undo what you've done previously. The difference between copy and cut, if I do Control X for cut, is it will remove the selected area of text, but it'll save it as a copy. You can only have one of these options at a time stored as far as quick access. If I hit Control V now, though, my selected text is now below where I selected. Additionally, you can also do Control I, Control B, and Control S to quickly access a few other options, such as if I highlight this text here and do Control B, bolds the text, Control I, italicize the text, and Control S allows you to quick save a document. Just some additional notes here. I also have some citations on this little brief go through. The Office 365 Training Center adds a few different other options to the Office support that I didn't cover, so it's very useful to go there, as well as just the Word templates, which I have referenced above. Lastly, other than the one question I see already, if you have any other questions, please go ahead and feel free to email me, tlevine@crnstone.com. Just put Tech Tuesday in your subject line because my emails do autofilter. Additionally, you could reach me at the number described there. And this is a picture of me since some people don't actually know what I look like. Go ahead and please contact me with any questions you might have. One of the first questions, though, that I see actually is how do you add a title of the document, how you have it saved to the actual document? Like I said before, that's actually done via headers. If you go into the Insert tab here, go under Header Information, and then click, you can access header footer. You can also do a different first page with that option there. You can quick jump to the footer here. You can also add quick parts in here, which I didn't cover before, and that adds different fields such as the title and author, or pre-format any snippets you create. You can do that with auto text here and add maybe a Cornerstone Broker Insurance Services Agency automatically to the footer right there. And that's how you'd go ahead and add that. Sorry, Jennifer, if I didn't answer that question really fully, but I'd be happy to go over it in more detail if you would like to meet up at a different time. If there are any other questions, please feel free to add it as a question or go ahead and type it out here in the chat box below. One last thing to mention before I go ahead and leave you guys as you type your questions. Next Tech Tuesday will actually be on something near and dear to my heart, which is the difference between Apple versus PC. A lot of people use Apple products and a lot of people use PC products, and it's actually somewhat of a war without really viewing the merits and demerits of each different system. One thing just before I give away the goat, Apple products are typically used more for artistic purposes, where PC has been used traditionally more for office type use, but that might not be where we're headed. If you'd like to know more, please tune into our next Tech Tuesday, and that'll be on Tuesday, the 2nd of April. Like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Thank you.